Okay, as you said, my husband is a second-generation commercial fisherman. Our son is the third. My nephew has also fished on the boat, so this is a generational family. We've been married for 31 years, so I've been hanging with him in the fish biz for that long. This season, the closure caught us by a bit of surprise. Being just the nature of our family, we always have some set aside, for emergencies. We had reserves. I use the word had. This summer was a tough one because we had some medical bills and some drought expenses that I really kind of wasn't planning on. So that kind of put us at a low ebb coming into this crab season. But then it's like, okay, well, we'll make it up. A lot of older fishing families, that's kind of the way it is. You plan for the bad times. Well, that led us to start at Central Coast Women for Fisheries a GoFundMe page, because this idea came up over Christmas when I realized that a lot of the younger guys don't have the reserves that we had. So Central Coast Women for Fisheries started the GoFundMe page, and so far from just Morro Bay, we've raised $5,500. That has all been sent out. I now have a waiting list. It started out that I asked people to email me. Then I started getting messages on Facebook, and then somehow my cell phone number got out. So I have fishermen from Moss Landing to Crescent City calling me pretty much from 7 o'clock in the morning on till about 9 o'clock at night, asking for help. I found out I know there's a lot of pride, and it's very hard to play God, and I don't recommend that to anybody, to decide who gets these $100 certificates. When guys are pleading and asking for a certificate for $100, that just scares the bejesus out of me. In our household, I have a chicken business on the side, egg business, and we're currently using that for grocery money, and we're working on my paycheck. My paycheck has always provided our health insurance and our 401k retirement, and now we're trying to live on that. My husband and I have also started absorbing our son's student loans, and I think his truck payment is coming up next. My take-home pay is about $1,700 a month if I don't take out from my 401k. You try managing on that. That being said, I've told fishermen to go to their local food banks, which was really, really hard to do. And I've asked them to go to the Salvation Army. The reports I'm getting back from different ports are, Salvation Army told me to go get a job. We're in a limbo. You just don't tie up your boat and go get a job, because we're thinking we might fish soon, and we're hoping we might fish soon. That's unrealistic. Like I said, I've been getting emails, I've been getting thank you cards from people who are very grateful. I typically don't like to start the morning out in tears, and that's been happening, and I'm not a crier. These are some of the stories that I've heard. People can't make their mortgages. A family out of Santa Cruz asked me, how many mortgage payments can you be behind before they take your house? I don't know, and I don't want to know, and I hope to God they never find out. A good friend of ours who is, I think he's 5th generation, he's working for Tips in San Francisco for this month on a party boat, a sightseeing boat. This man has done everything right, and he's working for Tips. I've had reports of people moving in with their in-laws. Our son has moved in with us. They're condensing, people moving in with girlfriends, they're being kicked out of their houses because they can't pay their rent. Not being able to buy groceries is, to me, a horrible thought. The various ports that are helping, they're trying to come up with grassroots. Bodega Bay, Spud Point has been the leader. They've put a food bank in their laundry room. Fort Bragg, Bill Fortner has gone around to businesses personally and asked them for donations, and he is handing them out the donations as people need them. Crescent City was a little bit different. They didn't have any help, and the harbor turned them down for an area to house a food bank. So some ladies that are extreme couponers, bless them, got a church involved, and these ladies have taken it upon themselves to stock a food bank that is just for crabbers.
1 minute.
And I cannot begin to explain the toll that this has taken on just family life and just the psyche, because guys are very, very, very depressed. And I'll leave you with this in my gratuitous cuss that I said. It's kind of bullshit when people whose job it is to provide food have to ask for food. And that's, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. French. And this crisis has set in, and as you had said, the stress on families, I mean, there is no greater stress than having significant financial burden.
Oh,
And
it's...
particularly when you're losing your home. And we've received messages from up and down the coast, like you just said. Folks can't pay their rent. They're selling their salmon permits. They may be selling their boats. They're selling their tackle. And they're turning to food banks.
Oh, and I forgot to mention the magical word of taxes that are due on March 1st. And then we have the fun fishing game permits on April 1st. And everybody's going, where's this money coming from? What is the IRS going to do to us when we can't pay?
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. French.
You're welcome.
We're grateful for your time and for all of your advocacy over these past many months. We'd like to be able to turn it over to Mr. Platt. He's a board member at the Pacific Coast Federation of Fishermen's Association, and he's going to be able to provide us an update on what he's seen directly on the ground with the hardworking crabbing industry.
Thank you, Senator McGuire, Assemblyman Wood, and the members of the Joint Committee. I'm literally a fish out of water here, so it's good to be able to look up there and see familiar faces, so thank you. When I first started crabbing at 17 years old in 1979, not many of the boats were dependent on crab fishing, but after huge cutbacks in our salmon season in the early 90s, and later after a 50% reduction of the trawl fleet, effort shifted more to crab for most of the fleet. Today, after about 10 years of relatively good harvest, most of us now rely mainly on crab for the majority of our income, and many of us only have crab and salmon permits, with no ability to switch to other fisheries during tough times. Because it's our most dependable fishery, we've reinvested heavily into our crab operations. On a personal note, last year was one of my best seasons. After years of hard work, gradually building up our business and our savings, after raising a family and putting 2 boys through college, my wife and I were finally able to get a mortgage loan, and at age 52 and 53, we put a down payment on our first home. We also spent a huge chunk of the season's profits on much-needed boat repairs and a bigger tank to double our capacity for crab. Going into fall, we were hoping for another good season. When we first became aware of the domoic acid problem in November, we hoped for a brief delay. Months later, spring is starting, and we are still waiting to set traps, and now we have lost the most important months. All the major crab buying holidays and events are past. The domoic acid has persisted longer than expected, and even though recent tests on the crabs are encouraging, there's still problem areas on the coast, so it could be mid-March or maybe even later before the season could open. By this time of year, most of us would normally be getting ready for our summer fisheries, salmon, shrimp, dragging, albacore. Fishermen have tried to remain optimistic throughout the winter, hoping just to get back out on the water and go to work. We're still hoping that could happen. We are independent, hardworking people that are used to struggling to survive and prosper in one of the nation's most dangerous occupations. Excuse me. But after nearly a year without income, many of us are struggling to pay boat loans, mortgages, rent, insurance, and all the other costs for running a business. Some are struggling just to feed their families. Those who still have some money are now spending down their life savings. After a salmon season in 2015 that was largely a bust, we've already spent whatever we made to get ready for the crab season. Due to multiple years of drought and current El Nino ocean conditions, we're looking into summer and another most likely lousy salmon season. Suddenly, our fishing fleet is finding itself in dangerous, uncharted waters. After a few years of growth, many California fishing families are now in deep financial strait with little hope in sight. So it was with a collective sigh of relief that we heard the news 2 days ago that Governor Brown declared our season a disaster. It's not the outcome we had hoped for, but at least now we can see a possibility of survival on the horizon. We're hopeful that the Commerce Secretary will act soon and request that Congress approves financial aid to our fleet. Season opening or not, an act of Congress is literally the only way we could recoup the huge losses suffered to the crab industry. Without it, our fleet will lose many hardworking families to bankruptcy. Coastal economies will suffer long-lasting damage. If we can continue to work together to make this happen and also to get our boats back on the water, then we can get this industry back on its feet. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us, and especially heartfelt thanks to Director Bonham, Senator McGuire, Assemblyman Wood, and Mr. Wesselow for showing us how much you care. We're truly fortunate to have friends like you in Sacramento.
Thank you very much, and I really appreciate it is coming from the heart, and you are seeing it firsthand. I think the other perspective is crabbers came to the state to be able to say, we want to protect public health first. Crabbers were the ones that said to both Fish and Wildlife and public health, we need to shut down the fishery because there is a potential risk to the public if crab is consumed. I got to tell you, I do not see industries coming forward to a governing body to be able to protect the public first. Many times profits become the #1 priority. And I just want to say thank you. It is a tough time for everybody.
Can I just say one
Please.
word? Most of us would rather be fishing.
Yeah.
We don't want handouts. We want to fish.
And that's the other piece, absolutely, thank you, Ms. French, is extremely proud. And in fact, it was only up until, and correct me if I'm wrong, last few weeks, where after we passed the 15th, which was the last historical date as far as the longest closure, that the industry started saying we need to start looking at alternatives. Because the #1 goal for the fleet is to get back to work. Quick question. The average fee that you have coming up from Fish and Wildlife, how much is that?
I believe my fees this year are $1,100 for permits.
Perfect.
I have to confess, I haven't opened the envelope because I haven't had the nerve.
Absolutely. I hear that.
I had to get past the tax hurdle first.
Yes. That is an item that we'll definitely follow up on, particularly since it is an area that we can really focus in regards to the fees with the Fish and Wildlife. I do not have any further questions. I just want to say thank you. So grateful that all of you provided testimony today. Thank you for your hard work. And again, I will continue to make this promise. We're in this together, and we're going to fight like hell to make sure that we get this disaster declaration. What we'd like to be able to do at this time is to be able to take a break for lunch. We're going to take a half-hour break, which means we're going to be back in this room at 12:55. We're going to reconvene at 12:55. Can we give our panel a round of applause and say thank you to them real quick? And I apologize that it's going to be a little quicker. We're just running a little bit behind, so we're going to reconvene at 12:55. We're going to hear from the we're going to have Fishery and Aquaculture Committee reports coming up at 12:55. Thank you so much.